Begin today the Gemara on Daf Tzadik, Tes, Samad Beis, the last line of the Yamad. Rava Omar. This is the middle of a sugya discussing who is an apikaitis. Because the Gemara brought before what it says in the Mishnah and in the Braisa before that an apikaitis, ein lechelek lo'olam haba. So who is the apikaitis? There's an apikaitis and there's one that's megal panim b'Torah. The Gemara before had a discussion regarding the difference, and here the Gemara is going to bring additional interpretations who the apikaitis is. The word apikaitis, by the way, comes from the term afikirusa, which means someone that is like behaving lawless and hefker and doesn't give the proper honor to Torah. That's the source of the word. Okay, so the way apikaitis is used by people today and the way the Gemara brings it here is not exactly the same. We'll see there's even things that you might expect that it's not. He's not an apikaitis. The Gemara here calls this individual an apikaitis. Let's see. Rava says, Kagain hani debei binyamin asya, like those individuals that are in the house that live by Binyamin the doctor. The Amri, they would say, Mai ahanalan rabbanan. What benefit are the chachamim for us? Me oilam leishadalan urva. They never were able to tell us that a raven is permitted to eat. And they also, on the other hand, never told us that a dove is not permitted to eat. What this is saying is, everything already says in the Torah. What's permitted, what's forbidden, it already says clearly in the Torah. So what are Chachamim adding? So they're not to no benefit to us. Speaking in this way about the Chachamim is an apikaitis. Now, so the Gemara says about this, Ravik, you have a maisi, treifse, the baby yamin kamei. When they would bring a chicken that was shechted and they asked the shaila, they had to know if it's kosher or not, and Rava had to paskin for them. So when Rava would paskin and see a reason that it's allowed, that it's mutter, amalahu, he would tell them, Techsu, look, see, the kasharinu l'cha I'm being matter for you a raven. In other words, he was telling them, if not for the fact that I was matter this to you, then you wouldn't be able to eat it, because without the koyach of the chachamim, then you wouldn't know what the heter over here is. And then when he saw in the shaila that they came to ask, that is the reason that it's aser, amalu, he would tell them, this is something that you may have thought that is allowed, and I'm pointing out to you that it's aser, and it's like I'm asering a yaina, even a dove. So he wanted that this should be clear to them. They should understand the benefit of the koyach of the Torah of the chacham that know the halachas that are able to pass it.
But he put the answer there.
That was the whole point over here. Correct. Rav Papa says another pshat, who's an apikaitis? Kagain the Omar Hani Rabbanon, like one that expresses himself regarding Chachamim not in the most respectful manner. He says Hani Rabbanon, these Rabbanon. Now there from pshatim here what this means. In one pshat in Rashi, Hani Rabbanon means that when you're referring to the Chachamim, you have to say Rabbi Seinu Sheb'Mokim Ploni. That's how Rashi puts it. The rabbis, the Chachamim in this place, not Hani Rabbanon, those Rabbanon. It's not enough honorable. Another pshat that Rashi says is when it says Hani Rabbanon, it's the word Hani as opposed to Hanu. Hani is when you speak to someone in present that's present. You say you. As in Yiddish, it's more this way. When you say du or ir, du when you speak to someone directly, that's not a term of kavod. When you say ir, you're speaking about someone that like in third person, or like you're speaking to someone that he's not present here. That's more honorable. So when it says hani these rachachamim, that's not honorable. When you say hanhu rabbanon those, that is more honorable. It's another pshat in Rashi. Or there's actually another way how to understand the second pshat in Rashi here when it says hani, that the Gemara here means to say without the word rabbanon. When someone refers to the chachamim and he says, "Oh, those people, like those guys," they say whatever. Like he's not using b'chlal honorable term. That's someone that's called an apikaitis. So now the Gemara says, Rav Papa ishtali, Rav Papa himself once slipped, he forgot, v'amar, and he said, Kagayin hani rabbanon, and he used this expression of hani rabbanon, whatever the interpretations are, whatever. But he used this kind of expression that's not with the full honor for chachamim. In order to be forgiven for this, he fasted. Another story that expresses this idea, Levi bar Shmuel, v'Ravuna bar Chiya, have a komisakni mitbechais sifri debei Rav Yehuda. They were fixing the mantles of the Sifrei Torah that wore by Rav Yehuda. Now, kimatum Megillas Esther, when they came to the Megillas Esther, so Omri, they said, Ha Megillas Esther, loy boy mitpachas. The Megillas Esther does not need a mantle. So even though it wasn't 100% clear to them, that's how Rashi explains this. They weren't 100% sure whether it needs a mantle or not. But they said it in front of Rav Yehuda as a statement. instead of asking it to him as a question, they said it as a statement. This Megillah Esther doesn't need a mitpachas. Amalahu, so Rav Yehuda says to them, Ki hai gavne nami, when you speak to me in this way, you mean to ask me a question, but you're sort of saying it as a statement. Merci ki afekerusa. This also looks like someone that's behaving like an apikaitis when you speak to me this way. When you have a question and you have your Rebbe, in this case Rav Yehuda, you should ask as a question, does this need a mitpachas or does it not need it? Does it need a mantle or not? That's the pshat that Rashi says. Other Rishonim say that the pshat is that over here they were speaking not with the right covet for the Megillah Esther, because they said, Megillah Esther, this it's only a Megillah Esther. This Megillah Esther doesn't need a mitpachas. That was the issue over here. Rav Nachman says another pshat, who do we refer to as an apikaitis? Zakir Rabbi B'Shmai, the one that refers to his teacher by name. The Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan said, why was Gechazi, which was a servant of Elisha, punished? He referred to him by name. Shanav, the pasuk says, Gechazi said, Adeni HaMelech, my master the king. This is the woman and this is her son that Elisha was Machai Mesim. And he referred to his Rebbe Elisha by name. Says the Gemara. Now, okay, so this is the conclusion of the different interpretations here. Who is an apikaitis? Yosef Rab Yirmiyah Kamed Rab Zeire. Rab Yirmiyah.
Lack of respect.
Yeah, most of them over here is that point, correct. So Rab Yirmiyah was sitting in front of Rab Zeire. Yosef Ka'amar, and he sat and he said the following point. That it's also connected to the point of here about the lack of respect to a teacher. So let's see. Osir HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah, correct. You don't have a chelik in Olam Haba. That's correct. Osir HaKadosh Baruch Hu lo haitzi nachal mibeis kotzei HaKadoshim. That in the Beis Hamikdash, in the future, the Eibusher is going to bring a stream that's going to flow out from the Kodesh HaKadoshim. V'olav kol minim megadim. And from this stream, there's going to be all delicious fruits growing from there. Now, this is the pasuk actually which begins, the famous pasuk that begins with Umayin mi beis Hashem yatza, that there'll be a river or a mayin, a spring that will flow out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and then v'hishkas nachal ashitim, and then the pasuk there goes on to describe. It's another pasuk here that it says Val Nachal, and now on this stream Yala al Sfasim Mizeh Koletz Machal. On both edges of this river will be trees that will grow. Lo yibal aleyu, its leaves will not wither. V'lo yitam piryei l'chotchav yevaker, that the fruits won't ever stop, and there will always be new fruits growing. Ki meimav min hamikdash heima yaitzim, the water comes out in the Beis Hamikdash. V'aya piryei l'maychal, the fruits will be for eating. V'aleyu l'trufa, and the leaves for a healing. That's what Rab Zayda darshan based on this pasuk. So Amalei Ahusaba, so this older individual that was there said, Yiyasher, that I strengthen, I confirm what you say is true. And he said, V'chein Amar Rab Yechanan. Rab Yechanan said the same as well. So now the question was about this. Amalei Rab Yirmiyah Rab Zayda. Rab Yirmiyah said to Rab Zayda, Ki hai gavnem, like something that this older person here just said. He confirmed what he said. Merci af kerusa, is this something which is also not with the right and full honor? When you have a Rebbe that says something and another person comes and says, oh yeah, what you're saying is true, and I could confirm this because Rabbi Yechanan also said this. Is that with the right honor or not? Amalei, so he said, Rabbi Zayda said to him, he's just bringing a proof to you that Rabbi Yechanan said the same like you said, and that's not something which was any disrespect at all. Ella, if you heard that something similar to this, when a Rebbe says something and someone else comes and brings proof to what the Rebbe says, that it's disrespectful, so hashmielach. What you heard is something that would be similar to the following incident. Like the story that it says that Rabbi Yechanan was sitting and have a kadarish, and he dashed and said, Asid, Hakadosh Baruch Hu lahavi, avanim toivus u'margaliyis, Eibush is going to bring precious gems and pearls, shein shloishim al shloishim amis, that will be in the size of 30 by 30 amis, a massive, massive gem. V'chaykik behem, and he will carve out in them, eser, berum esrim, by the width of 10, with the height of 20. And then, Mamidon b'shari Yerushalayim. These will be the entrance, the gates to enter into Yerushalayim. Shanema, this is what the pasuk says, V'samti katkait shim shesayich, that katkait, which is a kind of gem, will be your windows of the wall of Yerushalayim, and sharayich la'avne ekdach, and the gates, the opening, the doors, will be from avne ekdach, from these precious gems that the Eibusher will carve out. So after Rabbi Yechanan said this, Ligla Gal Vaise Talmud, so the Talmud that was there was mocking this. Amar, and he said, Hashte Kebeis the Tziltzil Leimish Kechinang. We can't even find a gem that's the size of even a egg from a bird, from a dove. Kula Haimash Kechinang. There's going to be a gem that's going to be so massive, and the Eibush is going to carve it out. Yomim, days later, Hefligis Finasi Biyam. He was on a boat in the water. Chazinu l'malachi hasharis. The Eibush showed him malachim, the command city avonim tovis u'magalias that are carving out these precious gems, massive precious gems. Amalahu. So he says to the malachim, Hani leman, who's this for? Amri. So they said to him, Asal Kadosh Baruch Hu la'amida mishari Yerushalayim. In the future, the Eibush is going to put this as the gates and the entrances for Yerushalayim. So he saw it with his own eyes. These massive precious gems that are being carved out. So when this student found Rabbi Yechanan again, the Yosef Kadarish, and he was speaking and teaching, Amalei, he said to him, Rabbi, Dreish, my Rebbe, you should teach, for you, it's proper that you should teach, Kishem Shah Marta, like what you said regarding these gems that Hashem will carve out, Kach Reisi. I saw this with my own eyes. So now on this, Rabbi Yechanan responded, Amalei, he said to him, Reika, empty individual. If he wouldn't see with your own eyes, he wouldn't believe this. Melagleg al divrei chachamim ata. You're scoffing, you're laughing on what chachamim say. You only believe it if you see it with your own eyes, but if I tell it to you, you won't believe it. Yav be'einei. Rabbi Yechanan looked at him very sharply. V'aseh gal shalatzamas, and he turned him into a pile of stone, of bones. So this is the case of a Talmud that's coming to confirm. He's coming to confirm what his Rebbe said, but it's not the right thing. It's not honorable, and it only shows a lack of his emunah. That if he saw it, then he's confirming what his Rebbe said.
At the end of the story, the beginning of the story, he didn't confirm.
Yeah, correct. At the end, yeah. Correct.
What he's saying is, I didn't trust you. Now that I saw it for myself, you're all right.
Exactly. But here you have a Talmud, though, that David allows him to see Malachi Asharis. So we're not talking about a Talmud. Talmud of Rabbi Yechanan, and he's able to see Malachim. But yet, he didn't have the full emunah, and therefore, Gal Shalat Samis. That was the end of this. Okay, but now, since the Gemara brought this up, the Gemara here asks regarding the size that it said regarding these gates that will be in the entrance of Yerushalayim. It said 10 by 20 in height. But the Gemara asks them this, Meisvei, how could you say that the entrances will only be 20 amas in height? The pasuk says, "Va'ilach eschem kaimimiyas," and I will lead you. And when Mashiach comes, upright kaimimiyas, proper height. What's the proper height? Full height. Reb Meir says, "Masayim mama," that when Mashiach comes, we will be 200 amas tall. Kishtei kaimish al Adam Rishon, twice the height of Adam Rishon, because Adam Rishon after Chet Eitzadas was 200 amas tall. So when Mashiach comes, we'll all be twice the height of Adam Rishon, 200 amas tall. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kufama, that when Mashiach comes, we're all going to be the height of Adam Rishon, which is 100 amas tall. And that is Keneged Heichal Uksalov. It corresponds the size of the walls of the Heichal and its walls. And now what does it mean here, Heichal Uksalov? So there's two pshatim here in Rashi. One pshat is, it refers to the first Beis HaMikdash, where the length of the wall of the Beis HaMikdash, the Heichal itself was 60 amas. And then Rashi makes the cheshbon. If you include the ulam, and then the thickness of the walls, and the toim, all the different and kodesh kedoshim, and everything, if you include everything together, the length of it is all 100 amas. That's what it means here, heichal uksalov, meaning the walls. But then there's another pshat though, that it means the second Beis HaMikdash, which refers to the height of the second Beis HaMikdash, which was 100 amas tall. Shenema, the pasuk says, Asher baneinu kinetim, our children will be like a sapling, megudalim, that they're growing, binureim, even in their youth, they'll be tall like this. B'niseinu kizavies, our daughters like cornerstones, mechutavais, carved out, tavnis heichel, like the structure of the heichel. So that means that their height will be like the heichel of whether the first or second Beis HaMikdash, which is 100 amas tall. Now, so what's the Gemara's question here? So here we see that Lasad Lavai, the height will be either 100 or 200 amas tall. But Rabbi Yechanan said that the entrances to Yerushalayim will only be 20 amas tall. Okay. This Gemara here about the height, Lasad Lavai, 100 amas to 200 amas, the Rebbe once discussed this barichis. It's printed in a Sichel, and Chut Sichel, Chelik Zayin, and Parshas B'chokaisai, the last Sichel there. And there the Rebbe explains barichis Gedolah about what the significance of this height of 100 amas and 200 amas is. One of the interesting points that comes out from that Sichel is that 100 amas Beruchnius is actually a higher level, is taller than 200 amas. Because 200 amas means that when it says there, kaimim mios, lashon rabim, it refers to 2 kaimais, but those 2 kaimais will be first 100 amas, then another 100 amas. But when it's just 100 amas, what it means is that the 2 kaimais of kaimim mios will be unified as one. Meaning it's an even greater revelation that it's going to be all unified in that space of 100 amas. So it's actually even taller, even though it's physically shorter, but it actually means something even greater. The Rebbe's masbeh there, barichas this whole inyan. But here the question is, how does it fit with the entering into Yerushalayim if it's only 20 amas tall? So the Gemara answers, Ki kam Rabbi Yochanan lekavi de beizike. Rabbi Yochanan actually meant that those stones that will be carved out is going to be for the windows of the walls of Yerushalayim, not the entrances. The sha'arim, the entrances are going to be taller, either 100 or 200 amas high. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to one of the details that it mentioned before regarding the water, the spring that will come out from the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and it said in the end of that pasuk that leaves will be a healing. Mai va'aleu l'trufa. What does it mean that these leaves will be for a healing? Rabbi Yitzchak bar Vudimi v'Rav Chisda Chadoma, one of them says lahate peshel mailo, that this will heal the mouth of a person, that people that are mute will have the ability to now talk. V'chadom, another opinion is lahater peshel mata, that this will open the mouth from below, which means that those women that are barren women that can't give birth will give birth. Itmanami, we learned the same argument. Others said this. Chiski amalater pe ilmin, that it refers to people who will be able to talk, and Barkapada amalater pe akaris, that barren women will give birth. And another opinion, Rabbi Yochanan Amar letrufa mamish. It means literally as a healing. It'll be leaves for a healing. My letrufa. What is this healing? Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Amar. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani says that it means letoyar panim shel balei apeh, that it'll be for the beautiful face of those that are learning Torah. Now, what this means is, as we'll see from the continuation of the Gemara, that those that sit and toil and learning Torah, so because they don't eat enough, because they're so busy learning Torah, so their face becomes a little bit darker. But this trufa, this alam the trufa that it says there, that will come from the water from the Kodesh HaKadoshim, will heal them, that their face will shine. As the Gemara here brings, Darash Rabbi Yehuda b'Rab Simin, Rabbi Yehuda b'Rab Simin Darshan, Kol HaMashcher Panav, Al Divrei Torah B'Olam Hazeh. One that learns Torah to the extent that his face becomes darker. And Olam Hazeh, and Rashi brings a pasuk over here where it says there in the beginning of the pasuk that their faces become dark like a raven. The lashon that Rashi says, Shcheiris ka'irif, they're like dark like a raven. So one that learns Torah to that extent, and Olam Hazeh, Kadosh Baruch Hu mavik zivar l'Olam haba. Hashem will make this shine. His face will shine in Olam haba. Shanem, as the pasuk says, Mar'eyu kalavanoin, that his mareu, his appearance will be kalavanin, like these tall cedar trees, bachar ka'arazim, chosen like the arazim. Right, so over there, in the beginning of that pasuk is where it says this term shcheiris ka'irev. But la'asad love, it will be like the lavanin and ka'arazim. One that is marav, he doesn't eat a lot because he's busy and he's toiling and learning Torah in this world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu masbiyah l'olam haba. L'olam haba, Hashem will satisfy him. Shenem, as it says, yirviyun mideshem b'secha v'nachal adenechas ashkem, that from the Eibishter's the fat of his home and from the Eibishter's pleasure, the Eibishter will give them to drink and will satisfy their thirst. When Rav Dimi came, Omar, he said, when Mashiach comes, Hashem will give every tzaddik a fistful of the Eibishter. Shenem, as it says, Baruch Hashem, Yom Yamas Lanu Akel Yisraseinu Sela. Yamas Lanu means a fistful of the goodness that the Eibishter will give for every tzaddik. Yamas, Aimus means to hold a fistful. That's what Rashi says. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says in this, how is this possible? Can you say that any tzaddik is able to handle, to receive a fistful of the Eibishter? But the pasuk says, Mi madad b'shaloi mayim, who measures b'shaloi, means the fistful of the Eibishter, he measures the water. Ushamayim b'zeres tichain, and the heavens is measured with the Eibishter's pinky, which means that even from heaven to earth, it's all just the fistful of the Eibishter. So how could that tzaddik handle to take so much of the goodness of the Eibishter that's like a fistful? So he answered him, you're asking such a question, that means that you didn't learn, you don't know about what's going to be. Because my time, why weren't you there when they taught the Agada, the stories about this? The Amri b'Marava. It was said in Marava in Eretz Yisrael, Mishmei de Rava Bar Mari, in the name of Rava Bar Mari, that Osid, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Litim, L'chol Tzadik, V'Tzadik, Gimel Meis, V'Astar Oilimus, that each Tzadik is going to have Shai Oilimus, 310 worlds. So you don't measure this just by the existence of this world, but every Tzadik is going to have much more. Shenem L'hanchal Oiva Yesh, V'Tzirseim Amale. So here, my beloved, the Tzadikim will have Yesh, and V'Tzirseim, the treasure houses will be filled. Yesh, B'gematria Tlas Mei V'Asarav. Yesh is 310 worlds that the tzaddikim will have, and therefore they'll be able to handle the fistful of goodness of the Eibishter. Of course, we're talking over here about tremendous godly revelations. This is brought, the L'hanchal Oiva Yesh is brought in the last Mishnah of Shas. Over there, the Rambam says that the Yesh of the Eibishter refers to the Yesh Miti of the Eibishter that's going to be revealed to every tzaddik, and so on. And that's the schar of the tzaddikim. Tanya Rab Meir, Rab Meir said, B'midah she'adam maidid in loy. The measure that a person does when he gives tzedakah, so if he gives a full fistful of coins of tzedakah, the Eibishter also gives him a fistful of goodness from the Eibishter, a measure for measure. The chsiv, as the pasuk says, now this pasuk says it in the negative, b'sa'asa, that the measure of a saw, when a person does in the negative, b'shalcha teriveno, the Eibishter sends and fights with him or gives him punishment, it's according to what he did. And the same thing also in the positive, the Eibishter gives according to what a person does. Now, again, here the Gemara goes through a similar discussion. How is a person able to handle and receive this goodness? Rabbi Yeshua asked, is it possible to say that a person gives a fistful of money for a poor person in this world? The Eibishter will return and give his fistful to a person in Olam Haba. But the pasuk says, Shamayim b'zeras tikain, that heavens, Shamayim is just with the Eibishter's pinky. So the Gemara is asking over here, how could we handle this? So the Gemara answers, but you, Rabbi Yeshua, you don't agree to this, that the tzaddikim, or those that give tzedakah to this extent, will be able to handle the fistful of the Eibishter? And here he brings him a raya from what you see, even in the negative, when Hashem punishes. Now, what behavior of Hashem is greater and more? Midas teva, when Hashem gives goodness or when Hashem punishes. So the answer to this is the goodness that Hashem gives is much more than the punishment. And here the Gemara brings the proof is because by the Eibishter, when he gives goodness, the pasuk says, Hashem commanded the heavens above, he opened up the doors of heaven, and he gave them man to eat. So here the expression when Hashem gives man is that Hashem opens the doors of heaven. Now, however, when it comes to a punishment by the Mabul, what does the pasuk say? That the windows from heaven opened up. Okay, so here it's only windows. Rashi here brings based on a Gemara in Yuma where it says that a door is 4 times the size, larger than a window. So therefore we see here that Midah Teva by the Man is an opening that's 4 times greater than the Midah Purani is when the Mabul came. So now if so, let's go back to the point. How could you handle such a great Midah Teva from the Eibishter, a fistful? So the Gemara says, but Midas Purani is ksiv. Regarding punishment, the pasuk says that the Yatsu, you'll go out and V'ro, and you'll see in the dead bodies, the people that sinned against me, those worms that eat in them on their bodies will never die. V'isham, that is, and the fire that burns their bodies will not extinguish. And this is the punishment that will be for these people that sinned against Hashem. Now over here it says that there will be a fire that will burn them that will never extinguish. Now, person sticks his finger into a fire in this world, immediately he gets burnt. So here it says that the punishment is that the fire will continue burning. So how does this mean? What does this mean? The answer is just like you see here, that the Eibishter is going to give the koyach for these rishayim, that the fire will continue to burn and they should continue being punished. So if that's by Midah Puranis, Midah Teva is even more. The Eibishter will empower the tzaddikim lakabel tevasan, to have the ability to exist, the goodness that the Eibishter is going to give them, his fistful lasad lavai. Okay, going back to what it said before, this is in the Mishnah, those that don't have a chelik in Olam Haba, Rabbi Kiva says, Afa kaira b'sfarim achitzainim. This refers also to those that read from Sfarim Chitzainim. What is Sfarim Chitzainim? So Tane and the Braisa we learn Sfarim Chesainim is Besifrei HaTzedaikim. In the Sfarim of the Tzedaikim, that the ones that don't agree to the Chachamim and they deny the truth of Torah. So one that reads in the Sfarim of the Tzedaikim is Ein Lechelik Leilam Haba. That's the girsa we have in our Gemara. In other places, the girsa is different. I think it says Sifrei Haminim, which refers to reading Sfarim from heretics. In connection to this, the Gemara brings Rav Yosef Amar. Rav Yosef says the Sefer Ben Sira, and the Sefer of Ben Sira, which is a Sefer that was written after Nach, that time period, and it's quoted in Gemara a few times. Nami Asala Mikri. You shouldn't read in the Sefer of Ben Sira. Now, according to most Rishonim, when it says that you shouldn't read from the Sefer Ben Sira, it's not coming to say that if you read from Ben Sira that you don't have a chelik in Olam Haba, but it's just saying that the Sefer Ben Sira has in it a lot of things that it says that are stam shtusim, that are stam pointless things, and if you're sitting and reading Sefer Ben Sira, you're being mevatel Torah, and you're wasting your time, so you shouldn't spend your time reading from Sefer Ben Sira. That's how Rashi explains it. But there are other Rishonim that say that Sefer Ben Sira is not a Sefer of heresy, it's not a Sefer of apikorsis, but it is a Sefer that could lead a person not to have proper amunah and betachim based on the things that it says there. So therefore, you shouldn't read from Sefer Ben Sira. So here the Gemara is going to go through different examples of things that it says in Sefer Ben Sira to understand what's the story with this book, why one shouldn't read from it. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says to Rav Yosef, my time. What's the reason one should not read from the Sefer of Ben Sira? If you're going to say the reason is, one of the things that it says in Sefer Ben Sira is, when you're preparing fish to eat, don't skin the fish, don't take it off from the ear. That's how they would take off the skin. Because then the skin of the fish goes to waste. Ella rather, the way you prepare the fish is, roast it in the fire, and eat the fish together with 2 breads. That's the way to eat the fish. That's what it says in Sefer Ben Sira. Now, what is it saying here? What is this? Is any message here? What is this all about? So this is, like I mentioned before, Rashi says that reading this is just a waste of time. But, one second, but the Gemara explains, no, maybe there is a message here. Because even if you just read the simple pshat of what it says there, this is actually something that it says in the title, do not destroy a tree, which means the Isra of Bal Tashchis. That's what it's saying here. When you're eating fish, eat it in a way that you use it and eat it fully properly and don't throw out. And if you want to say that what it says here in Sefer Ben Sira is just a mashal, what is this a mashal for? What it's saying is the way a person should behave, and it's a mashal for that one should not have marital relations with his wife in an abnormal manner. And that's what it's saying here. It's using the mashal of a fish, that eat the fish in the normal way and not in the abnormal way, but that's the mashal. And that's actually a proper thing, because he's telling you the proper way. So this statement of Ben Sira is not a statement which is negative. So the Gemara brings another statement that it says in Ben Sira. It says in the Sefer Ben Sira, Bas Lavia, a daughter for a father, Matmaines Shav. It's a treasure which is something that is false. Why? Because mipachada, from the fear that the father has, lo yasham balayla, he can't sleep by night. Bekatnusa, when she's still a young girl, Shema Tispata. He's worried about her that maybe somebody will convince her to have an immoral relationship with him. Benarusa, once she's already a naira, when she's just at the age of Bas Mitzvah, she's 12 years old, he's afraid Shema Tizna. Maybe she's going to go out and be Mizana herself. Bagra, she becomes even older, more mature, he's afraid Shema Loitinase, maybe she won't get married. Nisis, then once she's married, he's afraid maybe she won't have children. Hiskina, and then when she's already much older, maybe she'll get involved in kishuf, which is the pasuk says by women. Kishuf was more common. So therefore, having a daughter is something that just brings pachad balayla, brings pachad that a person can't sleep by night. This is what it says in Sefer Ben Sira. So this is something which is foolish, it seems. So therefore, don't read Sefer Ben Sira. But the Gemara says, Ha Rabbana Nami Amrua. This point, the Chachamim also said similar to this. Why? Because the Gemara says, you can't have a world that will exist if you don't have males and females. But Ashrei Mishabanav Scharim, fortunate is the one that he has sons, Scharim, Mishabanav Nekevis, and woe to one that his children are Nekevis, because of seemingly they're saying the same point because of what it says in the Sefer Ben Sira, because of all the worry that comes along with this. Okay, there is the famous Taish that it says Bana of Nekevis, that if one has sons, but those sons are behaving like Nekevis. That's what the Oila Lamisha, one of Nekevis. There's different Pshatim in this. Okay, now, so the Gemara goes to another statement that it says in Sefer Ben Sira that is maybe foolish. Ela mishum d'chsev, because it says in Sefer Ben Sira, leital davya belibach. Don't have so much worry in your heart, because the Gavrin, even very strong and great, mighty people, katal davya, they die from all their worry. So therefore, don't have worry in your heart. That's what it says in Sefer Ben Sira. So what is this? Is this true? Is there any point to this? So this is maybe why you should not be reading Ben Sefer Ben Sira. But the Gemara says, well, that's actually a very important point. Ha Shlomo Amra. Shlomo Melech also says this in the pasuk, because it says Daige Belevish Yashchena. Now, what does this mean? The worry of the heart of man Yashchena. So the Gemara brings two pshatim. Rabami Rabasi argued about this. Chadama, one says Yasichena midaitai. You should just be Masiach Das, distract yourself. Don't think about this worry. And the Chadama Yasichena la'acherim, that you should speak it out. You should share with someone else, and that will get the worry off of your heart. But he's saying the same thing, that a person should not just keep the worry inside and keep on worrying, because it's not good for a person. So there's nothing negative about this statement that it says in Ben Sira. It's actually good advice. It's a good point. The Gemara brings another statement that it says in Sefer Ben Sira. Mishum d'chsev, it says there, Mena rabba mitoich pesecha. Don't allow the public to just trample and come into your home. And even from your good friends, don't just allow good friends always to be in your home. Okay, so now, is that something which is positive? It seems like that you should close your home, you should not have people come into your home. Maybe this is the reason why you shouldn't be reading Sefer Ben Sira. But the Gemara says, Rebbe Nami Yomra, we find that Rebbe said this point as well. The Tanya we learned in the Braise, Rebbe says, a person should not allow to have all his friends in his home all the time. Because the pasuk says, Ish reim li'Yisrael, that if a person has his friends in his home all the time, so then he's going to end up getting into a fight with them. Right? So you have your friends, you have a home, they come into your home, but you have to have the privacy of your home. That's the healthy boundaries that there has to be. So therefore, this is actually something positive. So we're still trying to figure out what is it that it says in Sefer Ben Sira that we said before that you shouldn't be reading from the Sefer. Okay, so now the Gemara concludes and brings Ela Mishum D'chsiv, because it says in Sefer Ben Sira as follows: Zaldekan, one that has a beard that's like thinned out. So this means kortuman, that he's a sharp and smart person. Avdekan, if he has a beard that's thicker, Sachsachan, that means that he's a fool. The nafach bekase, when you see an individual that has a glass of beer and he's blowing the foam of the beer and he's not drinking it, that means loitzachi. That means he's not really thirsty, because if he would be thirsty, he wouldn't be blowing the foam, he would be drinking it. Omar, when a person has bread in front of him and he says, "B'may echel lachma," what should I eat my bread with? What dip? What spread should I have in my bread? So lachma savmine, take away the bread from him, because that means he's not really hungry. Because if he would be hungry, he would just eat the bread. And another thing it says there, man isle mabarta bedikne, one that has a split through his beard, kula alma layachlele. Nobody will be able to defeat this person, because it means that this person is very smart and he's constantly thinking about and planning, and therefore he always has his hands going through his beard, and that's why you see that split in his beard. That's what it says in Sefer Ben Sira. Okay, so this is a kind of thing. This is what it says in Sefer Ben Sira, whether it's true or not, but this is nonsense. It has no tayelis to this. What's the point of this? So it says these kinds of things in Ben Sira as well, amongst the other beneficial things, as we saw, it says in the Sefer. Therefore, it's saying that you shouldn't waste your time reading the Sefer. Now the Gemara continues, but Amar Rav Yosef said, Mili, Ma'al Yiseh Ispei, the good ideas and good points that it says in the Sefer, Darshinalu, we actually darshan this. And so the Gemara here quotes different things that it says in Sefer Ben Sira. Isha Toiva, a good wife, Matana Toiva, is a good gift, B'cheik Yirei Elikim, in the bosom of the one that fears Hashem. Tinosin, Hashem gives. Ishara, a wife that's a bad wife, tzaras labayla. It's like a tzaras, like a leprosy for the husband. Maitakante, what does he do about this? Yigashana mibeisa. He has to divorce her, v'yisrapa mitzarate, and he'll be healed from tzaras. Another thing it says there, Isha Yafa, a beautiful wife, Ashre Baila. Fortunate is the husband. Mispar Yamav Kiflayim. The days of his life will be doubled. Halamenecha. Another thing it says in Sefer Ben Sira is, take away your eyes from a woman that's beautiful, because you could be entrapped in her trap, because looking at a woman that's not your wife. Al tate etzel bailo, don't sit together with her husband to drink wine and beer. Ki b'toyar isha yafa because in the beauty of a woman, Rabim Hushchasu, many ended up getting destroyed. Vatsumim Kol Arugea, and many, a lot is those that got killed because of this. Rabim Hoyu Pitzei Reichel, and many are the wounds of these peddlers. These peddlers would go around to sell perfumes and things that are sold for women, and therefore they would have sort of this connection and relation with women. Hamragilim Ludvar Erve, because this brings to Erve. And Rashi says the p'tzayim, the wounds over here that these women would have is because a lot of times the husbands of these wives, they would suspect these reichlim that would have these relationships with their wives, and therefore they would cause wounds for these reichlim, for these peddlers. Kenitzatz mavir gacheles, like a spark that brings out the fire from a coal. That's what happens when a person does these things. Keklov mali oif, like a klov, like the dovecot that's full of birds. Came batei malay mirma. So too, the people that are involved in these kinds of immoral behaviors is full of mirma, full of things that are not good. Another thing it says in Sefer Beisira, quoted before, don't allow the public to just be in your home all the time. Even from your friends, not everybody tavi beisecha should you bring into your home. Many should be those that are speak about good about you, and then also reveal your hidden secrets only to 1 of 1,000. This is actually an expression in a pasuk where it says that even the one that lies with you, you should keep your mouth, meaning that even the one that's closest to you, you don't have to say everything, all secrets. Al totzar tzaras machar. Also in Sefer Ben Sira it says, don't be worried about the tzaras that may come tomorrow. Why? And here this is actually a pasuk where it says, because you don't know what's going to be tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow that tzara will not be. And then it comes out that the person had tzar and he was worried about something that wasn't even in his world, that didn't even come to be. The pasuk says,
everything is in that book.
Yeah, but over here also the Gemara brings in that you find also from Psukim. The Gemara is bringing in from Psukim what you see, it says similar. Kol Yemei Ani Royim. The days of a poor individual are bad. This is actually a pasuk that says in Mishlei. Ben Sira, so Ben Sira added to this pasuk, Af Leilois, even the nights as well, are also bad for a poor individual. Because Bishval Gagim Gagai, he lives in a home which has the lowest roof, and his vineyard, you can't afford to have a vineyard in an easy, convenient place. His vineyard is the highest up on the hill. And therefore what happens is, Mimtar Gagim Legagai, the rain from all other people's rooftops, they drip down onto his roof that's the lowest, and therefore he has the rain that could leak into the house. Then the earth and the fertilizer that he has in his vineyard, which is the highest up, ends up falling down away from his vineyard into others. Therefore, he doesn't have this. He loses out from this. Here the Gemara brings a siman. Zera Rav Mishar Shir Chanina Tovia Yana Yafa Yechene Merachem or Merechem Yeshua Mekatzer, that will explain this expression of the pasuk Kol Yemei Ani Roim. What is this referring to? Some Rav Zera Amar Rav. Rav Zera said, what does it mean? Ma'idich Siv Kol Yemei Ani Roim. What does it mean that the days of the poor individual are bad? Elo Bali Talmud. It refers to those that learn Gemara, but because when they learn Gemara, there's so many questions and answers and discussions, so it's hard to learn. So therefore, that's the days of the poor that are bad. But the Toiv Leiv Mishta Tamid, the continuation of this pasuk in Mishlei, where it says the glad heart is one that drinks constantly, drinking what? Elo Bali Mishnah, one that learns Mishnayis, which has the halachis, and it's clear and it's easier to learn. Rav Amar, however, Rav says, no, it's the opposite. One that learns Gemara and he has to work hard, but then he knows the halacha, because in the Gemara it's where it brings you the details that you know how to paskin. But when you learn Mishnah, so you don't know how to paskin, so that's where it's the opposite. What's the meaning of another pasuk where it says Masiya Avonim Yatziv Behem, one that carves out rocks, so he's sad with this. So this Elu Bali Mishnah, this refers to the Bali Mishnah. They may think that you have the halachas, but from the Mishnah you can't paskin. Or Bekeya Eitzim, one that chops wood, Yiskam Behem. So Yiskam Behem is bum. He'll be able to warm himself with this Elu Bali Talmud. This refers to those that learn Gemara, that are able to actually paskin based on what they learn in the Gemara. Another pshat regarding the pasuk Kol Yemei Ani Roim, Rab Chanina says Kol Yemei Ani Roim Zeh Mishesh Leisha Ra, one that has a bad wife. V'toiv Lev Mishta Tamid, he has a glad heart. Zeh Shesh Leisha Toiva, he has a good wife. Rab Yana Yemer, another pshat, Rab Yana says Kol Yemei Ani Roim Zeh Istanis, a person that's very finicky. And things always are bothering him. So everything is going to be, he has a very hard life. Someone that doesn't, not so finicky, not so bothered by things. Rabbi Yochanan said, someone that has overly compassionate and he's very sensitive about things always. So he can't live life properly. Someone that has some measure of cruelty, doesn't get touched, not so sensitive. That doesn't mean literally to mean cruel. To be cruel. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Amar, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, Kol Yimei Ani Raim. What does this mean? This is an individual that is always worrying, and he's worried about the future constantly, so he's always worrying. And you can't live. It's a person that doesn't worry so much. Rashi says he's not someone that gets angry so much. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, Kol Yimei Ani Raim. What does this mean? As Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi explains, how could you say that a person that's poor all of his days, he has bad days? So that would mean that simply he's teaching the pasuk kipshutai. Bad means that he doesn't have what to eat. He's a poor individual. But you have Shabbos and Yontiv, and Rashi says even an Ani B'Yisrael also has some delicacies and foods to eat on Shabbos and Yontiv. So why is a Kol Yimei all of his days are bad? So the Gemara answers, no, for him even Shabbos and Yontiv he suffers. Because the Shmuel said, Dama Shmuel, Shini Vest Chilas Chalimayim. When a person changes the habit of what he eats, that's the beginning of when a person has a problem with his digestion. So therefore Shabbos, all of a sudden he eats these delicacies, it causes him problems as well. That's what it says, Kol Yimei Ani Roim, Simon B'Tayv.